Preface. The world, when seen through the lens of a curious heart, has a way of whispering its secrets, softly, slowly, in the rustle of leaves, the hum of wings, and the silence between breaths. It is not a grand gesture that beckons us toward discovery, but the quiet, tender moments that call us to look closer, listen deeper. This is a tale of such moments, a story woven from the delicate threads of observation, ambition, and wonder. In the early days of a long life filled with questions, a young inventor finds himself immersed in the art of flight. Not in the reckless pursuit of glory, but in the patient study of birds, of wind, of sky. His sketches and notes become a prayer, and his designs are not machines of conquest, but of reverence. Yet, even as this young soul builds upon the dreams of flight, his thoughts are carried by more than just invention. There is a deeper yearning, a desire to understand the very nature of movement, of life, and of the winds that guide us. Through each page, he seeks not only answers but meaning. And so, we follow his journey as he walks between the earth and sky, sketching, measuring, and listening to the whispers of the world. In time, the story of his quiet pursuit becomes something much greater, a testament to the power of curiosity, the richness of the unknown, and the flight of the human spirit. This story is not just about wings, it is about the dreams that lift us beyond the limits of what we know. It is an invitation to listen, to wonder, and to allow ourselves to soar, even when the path ahead is unclear. The Sky and the Scrolls. Chapter 1. The Murmuring of the Wind. It was morning when the wind first spoke to me. Not in words, no, never in words, but in the subtle language of movement. A rustle in the cypress groves outside my window. The hush and sigh of olive branches brushing one another like old friends. I sat with my sketchbook balanced on my knee, the sun warm against my left cheek, the ink still damp from the lines I had just drawn. The hills of Tuscany unrolled in soft waves before me, their folds bathed in a milk-colored mist. Below, Florence still slumbered, its domes and spires like half-remembered dreams stitched to the edge of earth and sky. I often find myself here in the first light, this little terrace, stone-lipped and vine-shadowed, where the world begins again each morning. I carry with me my pages, my quills, a flask of water, and always, my questions. There is no need for conversation, not when the wind speaks so sweetly. It carries the scent of rosemary and drying linen, of hearth smoke and lavender. It carries the wing beats of birds. Ah, the birds. This morning it was a red kite that caught my eye. A magnificent creature, its wings bowed like the ribs of a ship, slicing through the air with so little effort, as if it were born of the breeze itself. I set my quill aside and simply watched. It circled high above the vineyards, climbing on a current I could not see, turning not with force but with grace. I could see each motion of its pinions, each delicate adjustment of feather and muscle. Not a single beat wasted. Not a single breath disturbed. I remembered a dream I once had as a boy, long before my beard grew in silver and my fingers grew stiff with work. In it, I was lifted not by wings, but by thought alone. I rose above the village roofs, the river curling beneath me like a sleeping serpent. I was not afraid. There was no weight, no pull, no fear of falling. I flew not from, but toward something that shimmered just beyond knowing. That dream had never left me. Even now, all these years later, it visited me in moments like this, when the wind stirred just so and the light danced on the pages of my sketchbook. I turned to a fresh sheet and began again. Not with great designs, not yet. Just the curve of a wing. The texture of feather layers. I sketched the kite as it circled, its flight path etched in my memory like an old melody. I made notes in the margins, lift, angle, pivot, though none of them captured the miracle I had just witnessed. Ink and paper cannot hold the sky, but I tried, all the same. My fingers were stained with walnut brown, smudges blooming like shadows along the side of my hand. The wind toyed with the edge of the parchment, urging me onward. Behind me, the bells of Santa Croce began to toll, their notes tumbling down the hillsides like pebbles into a stream. The city would soon awaken, merchants unlatching shutters, children chasing each other down cobbled lanes, the scent of warm bread rising in the air. But for now, the world remained hushed. I stayed with the kite a little longer. I once dissected a bird, years ago, in a cool, candlelit room. I remember the delicate strength of the bones, the strange elegance of its breastbone, hollowed for weightlessness. But it was not the entrails of creatures that revealed the truth. It was their motion, the way they obeyed the wind as though it were music. The way they listened. Perhaps that is what I must do. Not command the air, but listen to it. Not impose my will, but translate its rhythm. The kite vanished behind the pines. I closed my journal and ran my fingers over the leather cover, warm now from the sun. My thoughts were full but quiet, as if the morning had whispered its secret into me and trusted I would not forget. I would not. In the days to come, I would return to this place with calipers and models, with measurements and experiments. I would draft wings of canvas and wood, of silk stretched like skin over bone. I would study the angle of ascent, the pressure of air. But none of that had begun yet. Today, there was only wind. And wonder. And the faint hope, no, the knowing, that somewhere, buried in these scrolls and skyward thoughts, a man might one day lift himself from the earth, not with magic, but with understanding. And that he might fly. Chapter 2, of Feathers and Geometry. The day turned to silver as clouds drifted low over the Arno, dimming the studio in a soft and holy hush. Here, in the coolness of my sanctuary, among wooden gears, glass flasks, and scrolls unraveled like vines, I began again. The door stood half open to the garden, and the scent of rain on stone curled in with the breeze. Somewhere, a dove cooed from the eaves, its voice soft and low as breath against the skin. I moved carefully. My work table bore the fragile mess of curiosity, quills sharpened to slivers, vellum smudged with ink and oil, an open folio of bird wings, feathered specimens I had collected in the hills. There, in the morning's hush, I studied them not as a hunter or anatomist, but as a supplicant. I turned each wing with reverence, watching how the shafts caught the light, how the barbs held and released, like harp strings strummed by the wind. A falcon's wing lay open before me, its symmetry startling even in stillness. I traced its edge with my fingertip, noting the curve of the primary feathers, the lift hidden in their subtle span. The mechanics were there, plain, honest, miraculous. Not invention, but revelation. I pressed my palm lightly to the wing, wondering how it felt to live in the sky. At the edge of the table, my sketches grew dense with lines, arches, angles, the sweep of ribs that might bear weight. I measured each section as I drew, marking the distance from shoulder to tip, the degree of curvature, the tapering angle of descent. Beside these, I wrote notes in my hand, a script no one else could read. They were not instructions. They were memories, translated into form. The wing must not resist the air, but dance with it. Not a plank, but a prayer. I whispered the words aloud, not to anyone, not even to myself, but to the silence. My compass lay beside me, its brass edge reflecting the candle's amber flicker. I took it up and scribed a perfect circle, the geometry so clean it hummed on the page. Then another, and another, each inscribed with angles and ratios, my mind reaching through mathematics into mystery. Even now, I find that numbers alone do not satisfy me. A triangle has strength, yes, but a feather has memory. And so I study both. I build upon the spine of reason, but I dress it in grace. I paused only once to sip from a small cup of honeyed wine, cool and golden. It soothed the tightness in my throat, loosened the weight behind my eyes. I had barely slept. Thoughts had chased me in dreams. Wings made of moonlight, men rising like larks into the clouds, a sky filled with machines that beat like hearts. Behind me, the fire snapped in the hearth, and shadows flickered against the plaster wall, my own silhouette hunched over the desk, looking more like a monk than an artist. And perhaps I was both. My studies are devotions. My lines, psalms. My pursuit of flight not vanity, but a reaching toward the divine. It is strange, is it not, to believe that man might one day join the birds, not by sorcery, but by observation? That we might imitate nature so well, she would not notice our intrusion? But I do not seek to conquer the heavens. I only ask to visit. There is a drawing I cannot finish. It waits for me on the far table. The scroll is curled at the edges, the ink faded from the sun that once struck it through the western window. It is a design for an ornithopter, a device of flapping wings. It looks almost comical now, like a dragonfly rendered by candlelight. And yet, I cannot throw it away. It is my first prayer on this path. Imperfect, yes, but necessary. Beside it, I have begun another, newer, more precise. This one is quieter. The wings are fixed, wide and curved like the albatross that hovers above the sea cliffs of Liguria. There is logic in stillness. Lift can come not from frantic motion, but from shape, from harmony. The same way a sail takes wind, a wing might take air. I will test this theory. Not with full weight, not yet. But with models, small and articulate, made of wire and silk. Already I have begun cutting the fine canvas, white as dove feathers. My apprentice helps me stretch it across the frame, his hands careful, his brow furrowed with the focus of one who knows he touches something sacred. Evening falls slowly in the studio, the light growing bluer by the minute. I strike another candle and keep working. The air smells of beeswax, chalk, and a faint trace of cedar. Outside, the bells call vespers. But I do not rise. Instead, I bend to the page once more. The scroll beneath my hand is warm from the lamp. The lines flow steadily, and the wing takes shape again, not copied, not stolen, but offered. Not flight, not yet. But the shape of it. Chapter 3, The Whisper of Wings. There is a cloister outside Florence, long abandoned by the brothers who once filled its halls with silence and prayer. The walls remain, worn smooth by time, their stones softened at the corners, their arches veiled in ivy. I have taken refuge there, not for seclusion, but for space. Space to build, to breathe, and perhaps, to rise. The mornings there are colder. Mist clings to the grass and to the beams of the roofless refectory where I work. Dew gathers on my sketches if I leave them too long in the open air, beating across the vellum like tears upon scripture. I keep my scrolls tucked under oilcloth, but the wind still finds its way in. It curls around my ankles as I crouch beside the framework, whispering to the wings as though urging them to stir. The prototype stands at last. Not a contraption, no. It is more than that. It is a sculpture with breath in its bones, a thing shaped not from ambition, but from wonder. The frame is built from ash and spruce, steamed and bent to match the curve I traced so many times in my journals. The ribs are bound with strips of kid leather, supple as skin. And over it all, the canvas stretches tight and pale as a moonlit sail. I run my hand along it gently. It sings beneath my touch, a taut hum like the string of a lute. It is not yet a bird, but it remembers. Luca, my apprentice, stands a few paces away. He is thin and quiet, with eyes too large for his face, eyes that watch me the way one watches a father carving a toy from wood, equal parts awe and concern. He helps me adjust the harness, his fingers trembling slightly as they fasten the leather across my shoulders. It will not fly, I tell him softly. Not today. He looks at me, uncertain. But it will try? We test only the balance. I do not climb high, not yet. We stand atop the low wall near the cloister's edge, where the orchard begins. Below us, the earth slopes gently toward the river. The trees are in bloom now, their branches heavy with spring, their petals trembling in the hush. I spread the wings outward, feeling the wind catch beneath them. It is not enough to lift, but it is enough to hold. I leap, not into the sky, but forward into the slope. The wings stretch, the harness tightens, and for one breathless moment, there is no weight. Then earth again, soft, forgiving. I roll, laugh, and rise, brushing soil from my knees. Luca calls out, voice bright with startled joy. The wings survived the fall. So did I. That night, I cannot sleep. The fire in the old hearth crackles low, and my mind burns brighter than the flames. I lie on the stone floor, wrapped in a woolen cloak, watching shadows dance along the rafters above. I think of how the wings had trembled, not with failure, but with the memory of air. I dream of gulls. Dozens of them, spiraling above stormy seas, their bodies seeming to float rather than fly, suspended between water and wind. I wake with their cries in my ears. By candlelight, I return to my scrolls. I make adjustments, shifts in the angle of the frame, modifications to the rigging that connects the wings to the wearer's arms. I sketch new levers, lighter struts. I draw long into the night, ink pooling where my hand hesitates, where my thoughts run ahead of me. In the mornings, I walk the cloister with the wings slung over my shoulder. I test them against different winds. I mark the resistance, the way the structure flexes with each movement of my arms. I listen to the silence that answers me, not as absence, but as invitation. One evening, just before dusk, I ask Luca to wear them. He hesitates, then nods. We tighten the straps and guide him to the wall. He stands there, small beneath the great span, his face turned to the violet sky. The wind is low, gentle. He leans forward, and the wings stretch behind him like the arms of an angel captured in a moment of descent. He does not fly. Not truly. But he floats. For half a second, less, perhaps. Enough for the canvas to shiver. Enough for the bones of the frame to sing with tension. Enough to feel the air lift, even if only slightly, as though it, too, wishes to believe. When we return to the cloister, he does not speak. Neither do I. We do not need to. Something has changed between us, something quiet and profound. We have heard the whisper. Not of machines, nor of success, nor even of science, but of possibility. Chapter 4, A Silence Full of Sky. There are moments when time no longer flows but hovers, suspended like the dew before it falls. This morning is such a moment. I have returned to the hills, to the place where it all began, the terrace above Florence, where the cypress trees lean ever so slightly into the wind. Spring has softened the land. The fields are freckled with poppies, their red like a painter's sigh against the green. The air is gold with morning, and every leaf seems to tremble with anticipation. The wings are with me. Folded now, resting on the ground beside my stool, their wooden frame nestled in linen. They are not the first pair, nor the last. But they are the most honest. Stripped of flourishes, built from knowledge earned by patient failure, they bear the quiet clarity that only time grants. They are not meant for display. They are meant to try. I do not fly with them. Not today, and perhaps never. My body, faithful companion though it has been, no longer bends to my ambitions. But my mind, that restless instrument, still soars. Beside me lies my final scroll. A clean page, trembling slightly in the breeze. I dip my quill once more into the ink and draw, not a machine this time, but the arc of a bird in flight. A line so simple it could be mistaken for nothing. Or everything. Luca sits across from me, older now, his face leaner, wiser. He does not interrupt. He sketches, too, his own designs, angular, sharper than mine. His questions are different from mine. But they rise from the same wind. I watch as he unfurls the wings, this newer version we have built together. Silk panels stitched with care, lighter than anything I once imagined. His hands move deftly, without hesitation. He straps the harness to his shoulders, the buckles clicking gently into place. The wind stirs. He turns toward the ledge. And then he waits. It is not fear that holds him, I think. It is reverence. A deep and knowing silence. He is listening, not to me, nor to the others who have tried before, but to the sky itself. The wind answers. A gentle lift. A stirring. And Luca runs. Not a leap, not a fall. But a run. Forward, sure-footed, toward the light. The wings catch. For one breath, two, he glides. A low arc across the hill slope, no higher than a deer might leap. But he does not crash. He lands in a run, and turns, eyes shining, mouth parted in awe. The canvas still hums, trembling from the memory of air. I lower my head, my hands still resting on the page, not to weep. No, I am past that. But to listen. To give thanks. The scroll is nearly full now. Sketches and notes. The curve of a falcon's talon. The angle of wind beneath a gull's wing. Observations, yes. But more than that. Testaments. I have often thought that man was not meant for flight. That perhaps gravity is a kindness, not a cage. And yet, here I am, my life stretched across paper, feathered with hope. I once believed the heavens belonged to angels. I still do. But now I know they are generous beings, willing to share. We do not fly today as birds do. But we have listened. We have watched. We have learned. And perhaps that is the greater flight, the movement not of body, but of thought, of spirit, of daring. Luca returns, breathing hard, his hair windblown, his smile quiet and full. Maestro, he says. I nod, not as teacher, but as witness. The light grows long. Below us, Florence gleams in late sun, its domes catching the last fire of day. Somewhere, a lark rises, singing against the hush. I close my scroll for the final time, the leather soft and worn beneath my hands. The wind lifts the corner of the page, but I press it down gently. There is nothing more to write. The sky, I think, will remember the rest.